I think every extreme metal album should have like some like rock riffs, something that like grabs you, something that's memorable.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Hey, my name is Simon, and I am the vocalist and guitarist, one of the vocalists and guitarists of the death metal band Phrenelith.
And Simon, we spoke once before about Phrenelith
Yeah.
back in, I believe, the very beginning of 2022, when you released your second album, Chimaera.
Yeah.
And you described Phrenelith as a death metal band. Do you feel that the song has evolved since the last time we spoke?
That's a good question. I think I never saw Phrenelith as like a purely death metal band. I think we never tried to limit ourselves to any like specific style of music. But obviously we're like firmly rooted in death metal, but we take inspirations from all kinds of different metal and I would say music in general.
So the last time we spoke, you just released your second album. What have you guys been up to since then? What's been new for Phrenelith?
What's been new for Phrenelith? I guess the main thing that's been new for Phrenelith is that we changed drummers in the process. After we had like, I don't know if I mentioned this the last time we spoke, but we had a small, short hiatus where we changed drummers and started working with this great guy called Andreas, who also plays drums in Chaotian. Yeah, good question.
And you guys also did a 4-band split, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tetralogy of Death?
That's true, yeah. That how it was recorded, I think we started recording that in 2018 or something like that. It just took forever to come out. And we had a bit of a false start with that one since we recorded like all of it at a friend's studio and it didn't turn out quite as how we wanted it to be. So we ended up only keeping the bass recording from that session. Our old drummer Tuna, he did the drums in his old studio, and me and David, the other guitarist and vocalist, we did our stuff at our friend Larsen's place, who also recorded. He also recorded both our debut Desolate Endscape and our sophomore album Chimaera. So that was a bit of a long time in the making. But yeah, it turned out great, if I dare say so.
Do you want to speak a little bit about how you met Andreas and how he ended up joining the band?
I think we met Andreas through, or the first time I met Andreas at least was through his band Chaotian. I guess this was already some years ago. I can't remember if it was in 2018 or 19 or something like that, which is surprisingly already like 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah, we just met over like a common interest in metal. And yeah, both Søren, the vocalist guitarist from Chaotian, and Andreas, the drummer, even though a bit younger than me, we instantly hit it off and yeah, connected through death metal and just love of metal in general, I guess. Yeah, it took some convincing to get Andreas to. I remember like us asking him, I think the first time, like the way we approached the whole thing was actually asking him while he was drunk. And yeah, see, maybe it was a little more easier to sway that way. But he was instantly pretty interested in like joining the band, even though he has multiple other projects that he does. So, but I'm glad he like decided to join the band, since that like created a whole new kind of like a renaissance for the band, in my opinion, like of creativity and like, yeah, it was like just being great. It was great being playing in Phrenelith again for the first time in a couple of years, I guess.
So I'm not that familiar with Chaotian.
No.
Can you describe their music and maybe how or why you felt that Andreas' style was a good fit for Phrenelith?
To describe Chaotian, I would say they differ in part from the other like Copenhagen bands, or what you want to call them, in that they have a bit more of a like a mid 90s, maybe also a little late 90s death metal inspiration, kind of like a little bit of like Pyrexia and Brodequin and Deeds of Flesh and that more stuff that have maybe been termed like proto slam or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
But they also seem to have like a fair bit of, especially the new stuff has like a very clear emulation inspiration, at least to my ears, which is like super cool. The new split with the Danish band like Chrysopoeia, where they have like 3 songs, I think that's like some of their best material, but also the material that reminds me the most of like emulation. As in regard to why I thought Andreas was like a good match for the band is like, first of all, we were friends, and second of all, he's like a really great drummer. He has like a really aggressive style that I really like. That is like, it's technical, definitely, but not overly technical. He doesn't put like an emphasis on being like technical. It's more like natural flowing and just the energy and the frenetic outburst of like his drumming fits really well with Phrenelith, in my opinion.
I like the way he uses his ride bell.
Yeah. He's also he has a lot of ideas also for the songs, and he even played like some guitar parts on the new album, like some solos and different like kind of ambient stuff. So in that regard, he's like a huge resource also when it comes to like the creation of the songs and like the whole creativity thing. He plays multiple instruments, so it's quite interesting working with him, since he can grab any instrument almost and play the part and stuff like that. I think that gives like a whole, I don't want to say holistic approach to the music, but still like it gives something different that we didn't have before, at least.
We spoke a little bit about how you write songs for Phrenelith. I believe most of the songs start with you, right?
Yeah, it basically, all the songs, I usually bring songs in when they're like 90% complete, and we somehow like just rehearse them and pound through them until there's like a sound from below that they're ready, almost.
Do you demo stuff in like a recording software, like Pro Tools or something like that?
No, we haven't used that as much. We always talked about like making pre-studio demos just for ourselves, but we can't just do like some really quick ones, either with like, just one microphone rehearsal recording just to see how it sounds like when we're like thrashing it out. But we're pretty sparse with like demoing our stuff. We usually do. When we do demo recordings, we usually release them actually to the public, which is quite interesting.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, you release a lot of your demos.
Almost.
Yeah. Do you like that raw feeling of demo recordings? Yeah,
they definitely. They could better showcase sometimes like the ferocity of like the rawness of the band in a different way. I guess even though I don't want to admit it, we're like a little more tamed in our studio recordings. But that also has to do with I usually have like a pretty strong vision about how I want the music to sound, and I want many elements in like the recording that should be clearly audible. So we sometimes opt for a little more cleaner sound on our studio recordings, just so everything is audible.
at the beginning of February, Phrenelith released their third album, which is called Ashen Womb,
Yeah.
through Dark Descent Records and Misako Onoho Records. When did you start working on the music for this album?
I think like the album title Ashen Womb came like almost immediately after our debut album Desolate Landscape got released. It was like a working title from bassist Jacob that he wasn't sure what he wanted to use for it, and as soon as you like mentioned it, it was like, okay, this sounds quite cool. And I guess that's where like I started brewing on the concept of like the album. A song like Chrysopoeia, which is probably the older song on the album, we also wrote that shortly after the release of the debut album. So that song is also like 8 years old or something like that. And yeah, that particular song has actually like stayed surprisingly the same throughout those 8 years, which is also a little uncommon for us. But I guess when things really started taking shape was like after we got Andreas in the band. I started like having a renewed like burst of creativity. Wrote quite a lot of the songs in like the immediate aftermath of him joining the band. But also like some of the riffs and concepts or ideas of what you want to call them have been brewing for a longer time. And yeah, I guess some riffs were like stolen or what do you want to call it. Or like I basically took some of our older demo recordings of songs that never materialized and like kind of just stripped them of their best parts and then intertwined them.
Aside from Chrysopoeia, which you mentioned is an older song, how would you compare Ashen Womb to the two previous albums?
I think I said this quite a lot. I think we took everything we learned from the two previous albums and like kind of applied them to this third album. It's like, I think it's like the culmination of like those two previous albums. Everything we learned from Desolate Landscape and Chimaera. I think we wanted to like, in part, go back to like our earlier days, even before the debut album, like even to like when we're mostly doing like demos for ourselves. We wanted to like go back to like something that was like a little more, had like a rawness that wasn't like thought through in the same way, or like, even though we always had like a strong conceptual approach, I kind of wanted something that I'm kind of missing the English word for, something that seemed more immediate, something that seemed like more, you get the idea and you like just apply it right away, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think immediate is a good word.
Yeah. So at the same time, we had like, I guess Chimaera was like, had a focus on like atmosphere and had like an emphasis on like creating an atmosphere. I think that taught us a lot as well. That was something that could be applied to Ashen Womb in many ways, but without having the same kind of ambient, melancholic approach that like Chimaera had. That was a little more like, Chimaera was a little more laid back, maybe in some ways. Maybe laid back is the wrong word, but it had like a more, I guess some people call it like carnivorous or something like that.
Yeah, I understand. When you say immediate, I mean, what I think about Ashen Womb is, the riffs are very hooky. Do you know what I mean?
Thanks.
I mean that as a compliment.
Definitely.
The riffs like grab you.
I think I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I think I wanted something that had like some sort of like, that grabbed you. I don't want to say like pop sensibility because then people will lynch me or something. But I wanted something that, I think every death metal, every extreme metal album should have like some like rock riffs, something that like grabs you, something that's memorable in that way. So I tried to like, have something that could bring in the listener. Like, I guess when I first like wrote the intro riffs to Stagnated Blood, I felt like, okay, here's something that could like grab the listener's attention. And that's why we like put it as an intro and like also used it to like segue the song into the second part of the song. Yeah, so I got like reassured that when I like brought it to the rehearsal room. So I wanted to like put as many as I could of those, like, I guess you could call them like hooky, memorable riffs that could like grab the listener.
You mentioned working on the concept for the album early on, and how the title Ashen Womb ties into that. Would you describe this as a concept album? Is there like a theme that unifies all the songs?
Maybe it's hard to say if there's like one overarching themes, but there's like, I guess, a couple of themes that like bind them all together in some ways. A lot of it has to do with like, I guess, things like philosophical pessimism and antinatalism and some kind of like reflections about the Anthropocene, like the age of what we call humankind's effect on the planet and its surrounding and the environment, and some stuff like that. That it seemed like, yeah, that seems to be the concepts.
I mean, there's a volcano on the cover. Is this an apocalyptic album?
I would say most definitely, yeah. The whole theme of like, when I first got introduced to the like sentence or like the title Ashen Womb, for some reason my mind instantly went to like something, a volcano or some sort of like lava or magma or something like that. But also it seemed like a metaphor for like, I guess, like a dying world, or like the world's downfall in some cases. And yeah, it somehow made me like reflect on life itself, and I guess like existential themes and stuff like that. I think that coincided also with, I started reading a lot of this Norwegian writer called Peter Wessel Saffe, and the Romanian French writer Emile Cioran. And they're sort of like, I guess, a pessimistic take on existence and humankind's time on this planet and our effect on the world.
Do you have a background in philosophy or anything like that? Is that something that you studied?
I studied history with like and philosophy, with like my main major is history, but I'm quite interested in philosophy.
Where did you end up recording the album?
The album was recorded with a friend Marcus in his studio called No Master's Voice Studio. And it was our first time working with him, but I think I've known Marcus for like 15 years, maybe 15 plus years, for quite a long time. And yeah, I guess he was the catalyst for like a lot of how he helped shape the album in many ways. And I guess the whole process was like really interesting, since I think Desolate Endscape we spent 5 days or something like recording that one. Then Chimaera was 8 days. And I think, I'm not quite sure how many days we spent recording this one, but I think it was closer to 3 weeks than anything else. So we let ourselves have more time to experiment and like kind of bury yourself in the music, and like, yeah, it was less stressful recording than the two previous albums, which I think contributed quite positively to the album, since we let ideas manifest themselves, and like, yeah, I'd do like something like doing the same solo 50 times was okay because we had plenty of time, and like just experimenting, using half a studio day, finding a particular sound was okay, because we had the mantra of like unlimited time. The album was like done when yeah, we felt it was done. So we like kind of didn't care about how much money or time or whatever it took recording it, which is also, I guess, we started recording it in something like September 2023, and we kind of did it in sessions until, can't remember when we were even, like maybe May 2024. Of course, like most of the sessions were like at the start of like I was recording, so like at the end of 2023, but I kept coming back to like change things and like wanted to add some more things, and like here there should be something here, a different guitar effect, and here there should be some clean guitar and like keyboards and like ambient noises and stuff like that. So I kept coming back to the recording and like listening to it a lot to make sure it was how I wanted it to be. So I think that also is why I think our third album is like the album where I'm like the most satisfied with. There's always been some like larger regrets on our early albums, but I would say this one I'm largely as satisfied as I could ever be with something I created.
Yeah, you mentioned the last time that even after the recording is done, sometimes you change things in songs.
Yeah.
For this album, do you feel like the version that we hear on the album is the version that you want people to, or that you're going to perform live?
Most definitely. I think, yeah, me being like satisfied with these songs, or like with how the songs materialize, I think I don't feel the need to like change them as much when we play them live. But I also, I guess, we have, as a band, we've become more selective with what we want to play live, what works live, where I think we're much better at like judging what works live and what works just as a song on the recording.
So Marcus also worked on the four-way split, right?
Yeah, I think both of the four-way splits, he mastered them, but I'm actually not sure if he recorded any of them. I think those recording on those four-way splits are like much more primitive. I think most of the bands tried to like record them themselves, and then I think maybe Marcus also mixed some of the songs, like trying to clean up people's home recordings and stuff like that.
So this is the first time you worked in Marcus' studio?
I think so, yeah. That's got to be the first time I worked in that we worked in the studio. Marcus recorded some of my earlier bands. Actually, I think he recorded my first death metal band, which was like this very short-lived album called Mold that I had with this guy called Drace, who went on to start Taphos, and the drummer Ike, who didn't do much after that. Also, David from Undergang and Phrenelith. He was actually shortly also in the band as mostly a live guitarist.
Okay.
But yeah, so we know Marcus for a long time and worked with him, but he went from like, over the years, he went from like doing like very recordings with a very like punk approach to like doing recordings in this like very luxurious studio that he has now with like all this very nice gear.
That's great. What did you want Marcus to bring to the sound of the album?
I think a choice came partly or mostly because we had such good communication with Marcus. He was like, more or less, we can do it exactly how you want to do it. And we seem to have like, especially me and him, seem to have like a musical understanding that like reassured me that he could take care of or like help me materialize my ideas in a way that would satisfy me. So that was mainly what I think he would bring to the table. Also, he doesn't shy us away from like more unorthodox approach to like recording stuff. He has like, I'm not a very technical person, but he both have like digital and analog equipment. So we could do something like record it, like have the convenience of recording something digitally, but send it through the like 4-track, for instance, if we wanted a specific sound. Or he also has like a reel-to-reel record tape recorder with like 1/2-inch tape or something like that. So it was more his openness, I think, than anything else that drew us to like trying to work with him again.
Did Marcus handle everything until the master, or did you send it somewhere else to get mastered?
We also got him to master it. Yeah, going back to the whole thing about us having time to experiment, the recording is quite there's a lot of layers in some places, which also makes it kind of, I guess, a little bit unmanageable to both mix and master it in some ways, because there's so many tracks in some of the songs and like many small parts that needs to be audible. So we let him handle all of it. It seems the most reasonable thing.
So the album came out in February. Did you guys get a chance to do any tours, or do you have any tours planned for the rest of the year?
Well, we're working on some gigs at some festivals right now. But yeah, we always been a little selective in what and how things should happen when it comes to playing live. So I guess the short and boring answer is we have things in the works right now that will be announced when the time comes. But we definitely want to go out and showcase the new material.
Very cool. So Ashen Womb is out now through Dark Descent Records and through Misako Onoho Records. Simon, please tell everyone how they can order the album.
You can order the album through Dark Descent's webshop and Misako Onoho's webshop, and we also have a big cartel where you can order the album. And I think we even have copies of both a debut and sophomore album, along with some shirts and patches. Everything the heart's desire. I think people are welcome to contact us on Facebook or Instagram if they want to know something. We also have a email that's Phrenelith at hotmail.com. That people are free to get in touch at us as well. So yeah.
So I think there were 2 vinyl versions created, but one is already sold out, right?
I'm actually not sure. Well, yeah, maybe the orange one is sold out. I'm not sure. I think we still have some copies of the orange one at our web shop. So people should snatch it up now before they have to pay insane prices on Discogs for it.
And if people want to follow the band online and get updates on tours and things like that, what's the best way to follow you guys?
I think we're still a slave to like social media, unfortunately. So Facebook and Instagram is probably the best way. Yeah, maybe we'll do some kind of mail thing at some point that we can send out. What do you call that?
Like an email list or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Cool. Simon, is there anything else you want to say?
Thanks for doing the interview. Thanks to everyone listening and that continue to support us. That means a lot to us. We really love playing death metal, and I think we'll continue playing death metal as long as we exist on this plane of existence. So, yeah, thank you.
Very cool. Talk, Simon.
Thanks.